Matter perhaps is why Native people might choose to camp there. And in some of the literature that Joan, our historian, is reading about Native life at that time, there's some evidence around 1600 of the early Jesuit missionaries who founded Sainte Marie among the Hurons and were working in this area. There's writings about a trail or a line of villages where Native people would travel from up at Penetang, Midland, to Toronto, and they would stop in Orangeville and they would stop somewhere else, and there was a stop near Georgetown where they would stop on their way to Mississauga.
With Joan, with Aunt Rachel, these are several conversations over the last year. Through this Fallbrook, I got back into touch with her. She's my aunt, my brother's sister.
What do you want in tea? Do you want tea, Erin?
No, thank you. I'm okay.
1 milk, 1 sugar, please.
I have sugar.
So, this is, I can answer these questions. I've talked to her. I talked to her last night, told her what I was doing. Because we're in a hurry. She's pretty sick. And I saw Wilma this morning. Not Wilma. You're seeing Wilma at 2. I saw Alma at this morning.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we didn't. She forgot, so she was having her hair done.
Oh.
She is very keen, and so is Wilma, and so is. Now these are the 3 last people who have lived. They're all over 85, almost 90. Who knew the initial generation. She knew Donald. Wilma knew the Scots who immigrated here. So they knew the first generation. We talk first generation are those who left Scotland, settled. Second generation are their children who are our grandparents. So we're 4th generation Scots. And in the community, the other thing is, well, you've already got a pure Scots. So my idea, if you wish, just to get to a first interview, because I wouldn't want to answer I won't go through this again. I mean, if Aunt Rachel, I'll ask her the questions, and if she repeats them, then we'll just, because she has bad breathing problems. So is that all right with you? Mm-hmm. We'll answer the questions, and I'll just give this information in her name, and we'll stick as much as possible to what her memories are that she discussed with me. And if I get too much off topic, but now she's talking specific about Fallbrook.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, good. So, you ask the question. Okay?
Okay.
Please. And don't hesitate to cut in if it's going way off topic, because...
Okay.
Go ahead.
No problem. Just make sure you check it. Okay. What is your name?
Well, my name is really Sandy McCabe because I can't get away with saying that I'm Rachel Mackay Swan, but I will be telling you the stories of Rachel as she has told me over the last year concerning what she knew of as the Mackay farm, or Uncle Sandy's farm, and what is now being called the Fallbrook farm.
Okay.
So I'm speaking for Rachel, who sends her best. Rachel now lives in Owen Sound, and she unfortunately is not strong enough to move, but she's very alert, and she knows what we are doing, and she's quite pleased that this is being done.
Okay. What is her age? Did you mention that?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
She was born in 1917, so she's 90. She's 92, going on 93. I am 92, going on 93. Born on August the 10th, 1917. That's right, 1917.
Okay.
And this is my picture. This is Aunt Rachel, which is her current love is her car and bridge. However, she's not doing either this winter because it's been too much of a hard winter. So this is a very smiling Aunt Rachel. Good. And I will repeat that Aunt Rachel, like Wilma Sinclair, who is a cousin, and Alma Sinclair, who is another distant cousin, because their grandparents all intermarried from 2 distinct families, Sinclairs and Mackays, are the 3 women, the 3 lasting people that actually lived in the first generation of the Scott immigrants who were evicted crofters. So they knew, they go back to the 40s, 1840s, and their memories go back to the 40s and 50s in the sense that the oral history was transmitted to them directly.
Okay. Did you live in Fallbrook, or did she?
My father was born, Rachel's father was born at Fallbrook, on the Mackay farm, as were the five of the other brothers and sisters, although there was one, the oldest one was born in Toronto. But I was born in Owen Sound, because my father, because he was not the oldest, could not stay on the farm, had to leave, became a carpenter, first lived in Toronto, and then went and settled in Owen Sound. So I grew up in Owen Sound with my brothers, Alexander, and what was the third? Whoops, I've forgotten.
No worries.
I'll get back to the story. I'll find out what was his name. Go ahead. I never knew him.
Okay. Well, I guess she would have known some of the people that lived here.
She knew them all.
Okay.
Okay. She.
Do you have names or?
Well, she was very close to the Kirkwoods.
Okay.
Both there were Kirkwoods on a farm right near hers. There were several farms in that area. This is the Ballinafad Farms that we've discussed. That is the community of Ballinafad, or the Fad, associated with the village. So her basic and most persistent contact was with the Kirkwoods in the village here, or on the farm, because, as Cousin Jim said recently, they used to farm. They were attracted a lot to the farm. But as early as 1921, as we can see in this picture, Aunt Rachel came to the farm for summer holidays. It's really impossible to see Aunt Rachel. I don't know. This is the bridge, which was built by the Mackays, probably, quite early in the 1880s. And the technique is very specific to the Highlands, and it's stone. See the technique of the arch?
Yeah, that's really neat.
With the one, that's that one stone that holds it in place. So in this picture, this is taken in 1921. This is my great uncle Sandy and Aunt Rachel. Impossible to see probably, but this is Aunt Rachel, and this is old Donald, the patriarch, right here, and her brother Alexander. Kenneth Alexander is behind her, but very difficult to see. Anyways, that's Aunt Rachel when she first started to come in 1921, every summer. Because all summer holidays, her father, David, had to come to the farm to do work. These Scots had a very, very strong work ethic, as most Scots do. And so her father and her brothers had to come to the farm, and they worked hard. But Rachel, it was like a camp. She was they had no children. She was one of few grandchildren who came back visiting regularly, and it was just a beautiful holiday. Aunt Rachel remembers that as a beautiful holiday, coming down on the farm. She would travel down, in later years, she would travel by herself, coming from the train from Owen Sound to Georgetown, and in later years, they had a Model T Ford. Just after this, actually, after this horse, grandfather, the patriarch Donald, did get a car, and so she would be picked up in a car in the later years. So.
Okay. Well, I think you answered kind of the family question in the area. What kind of work did they do on the farm or otherwise?
Now that she tells very good stories and has a very good, clear memory of what life was when she went there from 1921 to about she went there till 1943, and in 1921 right through it was it didn't change from it was in 1880. They weren't that mechanized even till 1943 because it was a poor farm. Those farms in the Silver Creek, Ballinafad area were very poor. So it was all done by horse. The basic day is in her time was the women got up at 4 in the morning, and while they heated with wood even throughout the summer if necessary. They had a summer kitchen in the house. You can't see it in this picture. This is the farmhouse on Fallbrook, but there is a summer kitchen on this side. And she, Aunt Rachel didn't get up at 4 o'clock, but Aunt Kate and Aunt Ellen, they did. And their job was to go up, thank you very much, and get the cows. Now the cows were, I don't know how many cows you think would be on that farm. Maybe 10? And they would bring them back to the barn, and then their other job was to get the water, because the water was hauled from the creek. And if we show a picture of the creek, okay, we have it right here. So I'm describing how Aunt Rachel described an average day in her time, which is pretty basic to what it was all the time. There, this is the farmhouse, and you can see well, you can't see it very well either. We'll try and get a better one, because we have lots of pictures of the house. This is the house that they wanted to tear down. Underneath is the cottage. The finishing is the original wood. Goes back to 1880. That wood on the original house. In the house, the log structure was built in 1857 out of logs made from the original mill, and then Donald Mackay, who was there for 7 years. We don't know the specific improvements that were made. After that, it was Donald Mackay, my great-grandfather, who came, and then they finished it as a farmhouse. So the log structure remains integrally, is complete underneath it, and actually protected by. Now this is the creek. So this creek is what they call, well, we've heard the name Buttermilk Creek, and the creek. And Aunt Rachel, I don't remember what the name she gave it. This is one of our other cousins who remembers it very distinctly as Buttermilk Creek. And so Aunt Ellen and Aunt Catherine would come down here once they got the cows, and they'd bring up the water by hand. That is, they came down here with pails, and they didn't even have, what is the name of that you put on your shoulders?
Yoke.
Yokes. And the reason never could they pump up water because the elevation is too high. It's over, and she remembers that they got, they ordered 3 times pumps from Eaton's, out of the Eaton's catalogs, and they never worked. So they always had to haul, and that was hauling for 10 cattle, sheep, plus the needs of the house. This is spring water. It's renowned. This picture, this area is what is which attracts many tourists to the area, as well as the
Bruce Trail.
It's the Bruce Trail, exactly, goes through there. So this was all done before 6 o'clock by the women, and then the men would get up and they'd have their porridge, and that was what they ate, porridge, a lot of porridge, as you would know.
Oatmeal.
Yes, oatmeal, but not 3 times a day. They'd gotten over that. They had beef and they had meat. I don't know how many, she didn't remember much about vegetables. I don't know if they had a garden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they would have a garden, certainly.
They would store root crops, turnips and carrots all the way into the winter.
Well, they had a fruit cellar. Yes. We have it in this. Anyways, we'll get back to the house. After that, the women served breakfast. They milked the cows. The women served breakfast to the men, which was the patriarch Donald, great Uncle Sandy, the oldest boy, and any of the younger boys who were visiting, like my father. And then they go and do the heavy work, which was, they were still cutting trees down by axe. Cutting, and these were this was a big pine forest right in front of the home. As you can see here we can see it. This is the front, and this was completely pine trees. Huge virgin pine.
White pine, I think.
Yes, white pine. And so William McClure, with his mill, certainly milled some of this, but he was there so short a period that we don't think he could have done much of it. You can imagine that, a pine tree that is 2, even 3 feet in diameter, hacking away with some of these old, with an axe, and it would take a couple of days. And then pulling it out, stumping it out, pulling the stump out by a horse, and they worked with huge, with metal poles. They dug with a shovel, and they tried to wiggle it loose, and then they attached the horse to it. And they also worked with, do you remember the name of the sleigh? They worked, doing this work with, it was like a sleigh.
Stone boat.
Stone boat. There it is. That is the name. They call it a stone boat. Now, if you ask Wilma this afternoon, too, she'll tell you about stone boats. Instead of, and I mean, this was huge, plus the rocks. This land is the Highlander land in the Highlands, just grows rocks. You don't even need fertilizer. And so after that, there was a big meal at lunch, smaller meal at supper, and then planting or harvesting. She remembers very distinctly that fall was, they had, the combine was cooperatively owned. A lot of the machinery was shared.
Yes, thrashing machine.
Yes.
Not a combine.
Oh, sorry. Thrashing machine. Okay, right. And
Does this loose up the recording for me to be intervening? Like that?
No?
oh no, not at all. Nothing like a good tea. And so that basically, I mean, they worked from dawn to dusk. So, but Aunt Rachel didn't do the work. She didn't have to do the work. She was spoiled. She loved it, and fortunately she did, because the rest of her, the main part of her life was spent taking care of Scott men, and she worked hard, and her life wasn't that easy. So the first part of her life was very good, till she was 14, and this last part that she's living is very good too. She's on her own, and on her own. That's my interpretation, but she'll say it to you too. So it was in the weeks. What did happen on the weekends was Saturday night. The milk in cans was taken into Georgetown, I think.
Yeah.
Into the creamery in Georgetown once a week, and that was the social night. That was, we're getting a little social here. Depending on the season, though. I mean, if it was a heavy season, as far as crops and working the fields and stuff, they didn't take any time. Somebody went in when that was it. She remembers that the milk was stored in the old milk cans in the cold cellar that was built in the house. And since then, this is the cold cellar at the back of the house. You can see it well here. This was built by the Mackays. At what stage, I couldn't tell you actually. This looks very modern, this house from here, and